Hello viewers, you're welcome to this tutorial. In the previous tutorial, we learned about the return keyword or the property of a function called return. Okay, so if you have no idea about what a return does, just go back to the previous tutorial because this is an implementation of it. So let's just jump start. So we have our code, and if you don't really get this code, just go back to the previous tutorials where we're dealing with functions and other stuff. Okay, but if you just don't know what a return does, go back to the previous tutorial where I dealt with teaching you what a return is. So this is just an implementation of it. So let's just jump start. Okay, so I want to return a value from the function, so I say return. Okay, so which value do I want to return? And check the indentation of the return. The return is right under the first indentation of the function. Okay, it is just right under them. It's not second indented and all other stuff. So if I indent it for the second time, it falls under the else value, but I don't need it under the else value. So make sure you keep it under the main function itself. Alright, now which value do I want to return? If the user is true, okay, make sure you become analytical, because if this condition is true, then the user has access. So if the user has access, I want to declare a variable and name its value and assign a value true to it. If the user is wrong, what happens is, if the user's credentials are wrong, I want to declare a value, okay, and name it value. I want to declare value and assign false to it. So what happens is, I have two values here, the same name, but only one will run at a time, because either the if statement will be executed or the else statement. So if value is true, and the reason why I use the same name, because I want to have a single value to return. Okay, so use the same name and says, okay, a value could be true if the credentials are right. The value could be false if the credentials are wrong. Then I return that value, be it true or false. I can't say return true. No, it's not possible, because I don't know which value will be returned here. Okay, I can say return true, but if I say return true, then the only value to be passing will be true and true and true. But I want it to be either true or false depending on the code that happens up here. Alright, so let's go. So here I do what is called, you already know, okay, confirmation. I assign a variable to, okay, I assign the function to a variable. So saying this confirmation, you already know what happens. So to return the value into the confirmation. If you don't really get it, go back to the previous tutorial. So we say if confirmation equals true. Now I'm going to teach you another way of declaring this in a short way. Alright, if confirmation equals true. So what happens is, if our confirmation is equal to true, but check this out, if 2 equals 2, this is right. Okay, this is right to do, because 2 is not a bool value. This is also not a bool value. So if this condition ends up being true, then the if statement is true. Okay, but this is a case whereby our if statement or the condition is true or false. The condition is a bool value, either it receives true or it receives false. So it's like if true is true. So Python says there is a simple way we can write this by simply saying if true. Alright, so instead of saying if confirmation equals true, you can just say if confirmation, because confirmation's value is either a true or a false. So if confirmation means if true. Okay, if confirmation is true, and if confirmation is false, then the code will not run. But if confirmation is true, then the code runs. Okay, then we go ahead to reassign confirmation again. Why do we need to reassign confirmation? If we do not reassign confirmation in the second security checkpoint, then confirmation will use the value in the first security checkpoint. So just imagine that confirmation is wrong at the second point, but will still be given access to the third one. Why? Because at the first point he was true. So we don't want to only assign one, we want to be changing the confirmation value, whether true or false, depending on whether the user passes the first security checkpoint and if the user passes the second security checkpoint. So make sure you don't use the same confirmation values for all of them, because the user could be wrong at some point. So always be giving a new return value to the confirmation. Okay, so we do the same thing, if confirmation, then we go back to the same stuff. Okay, so at every point the confirmation will receive a new value, whether or not the user is true, then it uses that value at the previous one. So there is no need doing its confirmation here again, because this is the last code. Okay, so we don't need to assign it anymore. This is the last code, but you can only assign it if you want to get the user's last value, whether the user was true or false at its last value. But apart from that, there is no need, because this is the last code we have to write, and it will work perfectly. Alright, so let's just jump into our code. So if we run this code right now, and I enter prints, and I enter 1 2 3 4 5, it works. Okay, but if I enter a wrong one, it will say, hey, you are the wrong person, unlike the previous tutorial where it was just running all of them. So this is how to return a value. And there is another way to return your values, That is where we use the inside, where we return the value within the function itself, not at the end of the function. So we can have return value, okay, and we can also have return value here. Okay, so the code works just the same. So if I have prints and the credentials for the first time, it works. If I enter the wrong one, it doesn't take me to the third one. Now they work the same, but there is a logical difference among them. What is the logical difference? Should I have any code? Now what the return actually does, and there's another way you can declare this in the short. Let me just try to help you with it. We can just say this, okay, return true. All right, and we can also say return false. Return false. Now why are we doing this? Because this is the basic concept. You know, we are only dealing with it can only be true if all things are right. It can only be false. But if you are declaring it under the function itself, we don't know whether it could be true or false. That is why we assign a value. But with this, we can just say return true, return false, and it will come just to the confirmation. So the confirmation will either receive a true or either receive a false. It's the same thing, unless we want to declare a variable where we will use it. Okay, if not, this is cool. Now the difference between this and declaring the return at the latter point is, if I bring a code here and say print, this is the last part of the code of the function. Okay, now the return cuts every code. It's just like the break in the for loop or the while loop. Anytime Python sees a return, it skips every code in the function. Okay, so if I run this code, I will not see the print. If I run it, you know, it's not showing me my result. That's it. This is the last part of the function. It's not showing it because the return skips everything within the code. So if you have any other thing to execute, okay, within your code, if there is something else you want to do, in as much as you want to return a value, then bring the return to the latter part of the code, okay, somewhere like this. So even after the return, value equals true, and we have value equals false, value equals false. Okay, then we return the value. So if there are any other stuffs you want to do, you want to also do some other calculations within the same function, then assign a variable to either the true or false or any value, then finish with what you want to do before you return the value. Because if you return the value at the midst of the code, it skips not only the else state, it skips every other code you want to execute. But if I do it this way, just check it out. If I go print and I type 1 2 3 4 5, you see it here. This is the last part of the code, so it will be revealing every other thing we need to display. So be careful dealing with return. Only display return within the middle part of your function if there is nothing else in your code, like there's nothing else apart from what you're doing. Okay, but if there are other things you want to do within your function, it's good to return the value at the latter part. So this is the basic thing you have to know. Subscribe to the channel, ring that bell, and like the video if it's informative for you. Thank you for viewing. Watch out for the next tutorial.